Alright everybody, it is here. Chapter 1157 of One Piece has been released, and now we finally get to do a review on it. So let's go ahead and jump right in here. A lot of the spoilers, by the way, turned out to be true, which is always exciting. There's a lot of continuity between the videos. It looks like the whole thing of Yamato visiting the gravesite, the Inari Shrine Pilgrimage Volume 39, more specifically, is basically talking about who died during Wano to protect them, basically. A lot of speculation here. I have a weird feeling it's going to be a minor character, though. Just going to say it right now based on some of the theories floating around. But my biggest question still is, all right, Yamato, a lot of side quests going on right now, a lot of deviations from the main plot in Elbaf. So are you going to get back to being a Straw Hat? Are you going to actually join the crew or at least show up in the final battle? I definitely hope so. I think there's way too much exposition going on right now, and I think she will have to do something eventually, which is really exciting. Right after that, we get right back into the Rocks Pirates here, just to paraphrase a few things here. Rocks basically isn't afraid of anybody at this point, which is really exciting to see just how strong he is. As we talked about, this is now 42 years ago at the end of this chapter, and it looks like Rocks is just in his true form, right? He's several more times powerful than Roger. As we know, God Valley is going to happen pretty soon now after the end of this chapter. I'm really hoping that this flashback actually gets back into God Valley so we can at least see a little bit more of what happened, or maybe at least to see what happens with Harald if he was in fact involved, and then of course if he did in fact have to orchestrate taking down Rocks. More on that in just a minute. So basically Whitebeard and the rest of them are complaining that the Marines are showing up, that basically Blackbeard, or Rocks in this case, is basically saying get ready to fight and basically plunder everything and sink him. He's not afraid of anybody. 16 documented raids, 76 sunken ships, and basically is saying that in a mere 2 years since the formation of the Rocks crew, it basically spoke for itself. They were so infamous. They just took down everybody. 25 criminal records quietly erased, just unprecedented violation of international law. Just every time the Rocks Pirates show up, 14 ports reduced to ash, wiped out 5 towns. He just does whatever he wants to, and it's just pure, straight up destruction. Now, the one thing here I want to talk about is Rocks, clearly very powerful. Does he in fact have the Guruguru no Mi and a sword? I think that's still the big question mark I have. It'd be interesting to know if Garling, during the events of God Valley, saw Rocks and then in turn learned how to use a double fruit in his sword too. And that's where the inspiration came from. Some people on Reddit right now are talking about how Rocks just knew basically that how to use a sword in a way to create a shockwave. Didn't even need the Guruguru no Mi in this case, but I don't think that's true. I think that there has to be some sort of crossover, some sort of moment there where basically everything plans out. So he's basically saying that here, even with the future King Goldie Roger sailing the seas, basically this is the period of the Rocks Pirates, the era of Rocks, right? And it's really crazy to see him basically just doing whatever he wants. And it's just peak Rocks in this case. Now, as we fast forward here a little bit more, we see Harald, who's now shaved his head. He's a much more mature look on his face than he did a couple chapters ago now. And basically, Harald is now trying to help these people, and a world government official is saying to basically Harald that, hey, you can't do this, Harald. You basically can't interfere with them, right? You're going to hurt your membership if you intervene here on behalf of a non-affiliated country. So basically, what government is saying that this is not you. You don't want to help them. And of course, Harald is saying, you scum, you aren't human, right? We have to help these people. And then, of course, our world government very quickly afterwards exposes a hit piece on Harald, basically saying, King Harald exposed. The Elbaf monarch sinks innocent battleship, even though they were technically trying to fire upon these people. The alliance with the world government revealed as a ploy, the World Economic Journal headline. So, long story short here is that Harald basically defied the world government here. The world government is obviously trying to target these people and do some evil things. And Harald, of course, is now hurting his reputation and that with the world government. So now we cut forward to the underworld of Elbaf, which is always an exciting place. Ida Hyrudine, that's how you pronunciate those two. I know I had some trouble with them in a couple videos ago, but we're at Ida's bar now in the underworld of Elbaf, and Hyrudine and Loki are there as well, which is exciting. The one thing I'm going to show the panel here right now, I just absolutely love the scale of just how giant Harald is. Harald may as well be an ancient giant as far as his size goes. He's considered to be far more big, right, than the other giants are. And of course, Loki inherited this as well. I think Loki has basically the appearance of an ancient giant in this case, very similar to the Galilea giants as well. So as we see here, Rocks is now meeting Harald once again. Harald is even older at this point, completely bald, and it's a really cool shot. And Rocks is basically trying to argue with Harald once again, telling him, hey, You'd be better off as a pirate, right? Don't be dealing with these people. Don't basically play with Garp and the other world government people. You need to become a pirate. You need to join my crew. And once again here, the whole thing is Harald super powerful? Yes. Does he have Conqueror's Haki? Yes. Does he have the secret devil fruit of Elbaf? I think the jury is still out here. We don't really know, although one thing leads to another, and Loki has to be the one to inherit it. And basically, Harald is now pushing back on Rox once again, who is a lot smaller than Harald. Harald's gigantic, Rox is much smaller in comparison. And basically he's saying that some of them already come from Elbaf, like John Giant. Basically, there are these people in the world government, right? They could use our boundless strength. And Rox is saying it's terrifying, but still, of course, Rox selfishly wants Harald to join his crew to, of course, use the devil fruit of Elbaf for his personal mission, his whole plan, right? And he's saying, why don't you talk some sense into them, Ida? I wish I could, Harald, my son, I tell him, but of course you have to choose your friend wisely. And Rox, of course, feels like kind of making fun of him at this point, because I know Rox is this very powerful, almost evil pirate, right? And they can't trust him in this way. Fast forward a little bit here to the world government. We see another flashback here 42 years ago. Basically, Garp is now trying to talk some sense into Sengoku, Otsuru there, and Kong as well, and basically telling them, hey, we need to basically admit the giants into the world government, right? We need to allow them to join our crew. And then everybody here seems to be on the same page. And they're saying, if it were up to me, it wouldn't be an issue. But of course, it's not. It's up to the Gorosei, right? And the actual celestial dragons. And they can't do that in this case. So now we fast forward to the end of this chapter. 42 years ago, Hachinosu Island, it now looks like it currently does, right? The eyes are blown into the giant skull. And they're saying Shakyaku has now quit the Kuja Pirates. So saying she was captain of Kuja Pirates, right? So it looks like Gloriosa would have had to have quit about a year or so before this, right? To actually join the Rocks Pirates, as we know she does. Now, Shakky is now quitting just like Gloriosa did. And Shakky's whole thing here, she's not going to join the Rocks Pirates necessarily. But everybody's fawning over her. They're losing their minds. They're talking about, of course, do you reckon she quit so you could chase after a man just like you did, Gloriosa? Does love always ruin the Isle of Women? This is, of course, Big Mom talking to her at this point. And Gloriosa says, honestly, I can't imagine her getting lovesick like this. Never forgive her if she went after a Roger pirate or she went after Roger himself. But we know that it may be a Roger pirate, right? It is actually Rayleigh, but it's not Roger herself like we know Gloriosa falls for ultimately. So Shakky this, Shakky that. Stussie's obviously pretty angry about this. And Whitebeard is telling Stussie that he didn't actually love her at all. No, I don't want you. It's pretty funny to see. And then we see, of course, the Kuja pirates show up. Shakky, of course, quits the crew. And the first thing she says is, I just want to live here for a while. Everybody's fawning over her, telling her that they want her. They think she's so beautiful, right? And then, of course, she's asking the Rocks Pirates, you'll protect me, right? And then, of course, everybody is saying, we're going to build a bar for you. We're going to just basically allow you to live here, right? Rocks hears about this, of course. Everybody's losing their minds. And at the very end of the chapter, we see that Rocks is now basically falling over Shakky as well. And Shakky, of course, is now an angel, the treasure of Hachinosu, now living there and basically catering to the Rocks Pirates like Whitebeard and Rocks, which is pretty funny to see. Very, very final chapter, or panel of this chapter, rather. Just want to talk about this for a few minutes. We see Marie Joie, the original Gorosei, are sitting here, or at least the original Gorosei that we know of in this timeline, since we at least can speculate that they are centuries and centuries old at this point. They're basically telling Harald, you get one more shot to join the world government, right? The warriors of Elbaf must kill Rocks, and basically it's what it's going to take for Harald to gain admission, and that is basically their gambit. It's what they want him to do, and they want him to basically do their dirty work for him, get rid of Rocks, who is now basically the tyrant of the sea. The era of Rocks is what we're seeing here, roughly 42 to 43 years ago, and that is going to be it. Now, I love this chapter. I think there's a whole lot of more and more of this filler is going in there. So even though it does feel like part of the overall flashback, I love the flashback, so of course I want to see more of it. I just hope next chapter we get to see the continuation of this, maybe in the finale, right? In the form of God Valley, we see how Harald ultimately does impact Rocks in this way, or maybe even takes down Rocks. Few big questions. First of all, Gorosei is clearly against Rocks at this point. They view him as too much of a threat. They view him as this character who just needs to be taken down, right? So now I'm wondering to myself, okay, Harald is probably going to get played. He has to get played. The world government's going to basically force his hand to make Elbaf become part of the world government. We know for a fact that the Holy Knights are able to just go in between Elbaf using their pentagram transportation, right? And I have to wonder if this is the beginning of it, right? This is how they basically start to take over and start to make their own selves in Elbaf. So seems to be possible. I also think Harald's going to be betrayed as well too, by probably Emu. Maybe something happens, maybe a result of God Valley. Maybe he allows Rocks to maybe do the Opie no Mi. Maybe he basically implants himself into Blackbeard, which is what my current theory is, and that's how he figuratively escapes from the God Valley incident. Maybe Garling is supposed to take him down. Harald was supposed to betray him. Of course, Garp and Roger team up against him, right? I just have to think that there's more of this equation. We're going to see that more and more in this whole flashback. And of course, Rocks, he is at the peak of his game right now. He's several times more powerful than Roger. We just have to see how things play out. Shakky, my other thing here is that what if she is the treasure? What if she is, in fact, their One Piece? I have to wonder about, there's so much talk about love here, right? There's so much talk about Big Mom, of course, and we know that Struzan joins the Rocks Pirates as well. He, of course, was at least thought to have been Big Mom's first husband, lover character, right? We also know that Whitebeard here is basically turning down Stussy, which is pretty funny. And then, of course, we also know that Shakky ultimately falls for Rayleigh, and Gloriosa was not able to fall for Roger, so she ultimately was kind of left hanging, right, by Roger, which is kind of interesting to see how she plays out in the current time. So 42 years ago, we're really seeing the beginning of the end, at least the end of this era that'll lead into the modern era, which is always exciting to see. And Loki, of course, is the other big one, too. We know Loki loves Rocks. We know Loki's going to be impacted by Rocks, or at least the seeming death of Rocks. And after the whole God Valley incident plays out, I just have to think that Loki becomes a pirate. He dresses like Rocks. He goes out and does his own thing. And then, of course, he comes back to Elbaf only to see Harald getting murdered, likely by Emu or one of the Gorosei members on behalf of Emu. And then, as a result, he ends up taking the Devil Fruit of Elbaf and basically becoming a part of the current era. Now, does Loki betray the Straw Hats? Does he ultimately run away with Blackbeard? I think there's a strong possibility of it. If he learns that Rocks is still inside of Blackbeard, right, then why wouldn't he want to join with his hero? So that could be a huge twist coming up at the end of this Elbaf arc. All right, everybody, love it. Love to hear your thoughts as well. Please give a like and subscribe. As you all know, this is a labor of love. And I'll see you all next time. Peace.